Welcome to Lipstick, Laughs and Leadership, the podcast where we talk real leadership without the corporate BS.
We're Jodie and Emma, and this is a space for honest, human conversations about confidence, influence, well-being, and what it really takes to lead in today's world.
This podcast is for women who are capable, ambitious and thoughtful, but who might sometimes feel tired, stretched, or quietly question whether there's another way to do leadership.
There's no jargon here, no rigid rules, and certainly no pretending. Just lived experience, straight talk, laughter, and leadership that actually feels good on the inside.
So grab a cuppa, get yourself comfortable,
and welcome to the sofa.
Welcome back to Lipstick, Laughs and Leadership, here with me, Jodie and Emma, and today we are back with episode 5.
Yes. We have to look at each other like this now to know what episode we're on.
But today's episode, we've got like a bit of a juicy topic today, haven't we?
Yeah, this is kind of about stopping being the good girl at work.
Yeah.
And a little bit about the kind of where some of that may have come from, in terms of, you know, things like apologising and kind of some of that, you know, good girl energy, being seen and not heard, which I'll talk to you about a little bit shortly. But yeah, that's kind of the main theme for the topic today.
Yeah, it's kind of ditching good girl energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts on where that comes from, like for some people?
It's a major societal flipping issue. Fundamentally, I think it's right back to the gender norms that are instilled in us when we're little tiny children.
Yeah.
Just even from like a girl and a boy situation, girls sit still, don't make a fuss, look pretty. I think you talk about be seen and not, for me, that was something that was said to all of us. Children should be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a girl thing for me, that one. Maybe it was for you. But the boys will be boys.
Yeah.
Boys will be boys, will be, noisy, boisterous, over the top, loud, disruptive, all of that kind of stuff,
Yeah, I suppose when you even just thinking about the type of toys that what you would call a kind of gender specific, I suppose you've got your action men and boys being outside and rough and tumble, and all that. Well, and I was brought up with my brother playing with WWF figurines in the ring and that kind of thing. Whereas I was like brushing my Barbie's hair and, all that kind of stuff. And
My Little Pony.
I was just going to say My Little Pony.
That's how, well, if you're watching on YouTube, that's how I used to get me My Little Pony to gallop.
Yeah, but I totally knew what you meant there when you did that. So I suppose, there's that. And like I was going to say is, I was it wasn't necessarily, and I don't know if it was because I was a girl or not, but I'm the oldest child in the family, really, from all, like, I've got a younger brother and all the cousins are younger than me. So in terms of the family, I was the oldest child, and for a few years, really. So when I look back and think about whenever we had family get-togethers and the adults were, a meal, drinking, whether it's barbecue or celebrating a Christmas or someone's birthday, I would always be rewarded for being quiet, because actually the reward was staying up late with the adults. And so if you sit in the corner and behave yourself and don't say anything, it's like you said, be seen, not heard. And, I'm not blaming my parents on that, because I think it's the way people, I know it's not just me that was brought up like that, but it's like, if you behave, you can stay up late. So very early on, it taught me that actually it's about being seen and not heard, and you actually get rewarded for that. So, when we talk about having an imprinting phase from the age of about 0 to 7, some I say to 11, those things stick with you later than in adult life, don't they? Without sometimes you even realise,
Don't realise until it's like too late. too late. And, you know, I know we talk about it a lot now. It's talked about a lot on social media. It is a bit in the media. But if you're still 5, 6, 7 now, well, you ain't looking at that stuff. So you have no idea that that's still going on for you. To be honest, I didn't even realise till I was about 30 odd. Yeah. Because through my 20s, that life just felt normal.
Yeah. 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 It is definitely something that I think that stands into work because, you know, I think for women in particular is you have this battle in your head and things that you hear is, well, you know, is that how I'm meant to be in the workplace? If I'm then, you know, outspoken, am I going to be called bossy? Which, if a man did had the same behaviours, they'd be called assertive. And, you know, am I going to be told that I'm too much or things like that? And so I think I definitely, when I've worked at Cup, had this battle of, well, what is actually expected of me? You know, for me to, I suppose, be successful in my career, and you know, I suppose at a younger age, I'm not that bothered these days. Is am I gonna, you know, people gonna like me, or that kind of thing? And I think it is just this constant battle sometimes with how am I meant to behave? And again, these days, I would tell people it's about being yourself and not having to try and second guess, you know, how you meant to.
I'd let go of that entirely. You know, if your head's kind of caught up in how am I expected to be, their life be a shoe.
Yeah.
Which I understand that's where your head would go, because that's probably what you've been conditioned with all the way through. But that's the time to shift that, isn't it? And actually, who do I want to be? How do I want to be? Not what is expected of me.
Yeah. But I think a lot of that also comes from, and I know we've talked about it in another podcast, the environment that you're in. I think we all just need to stop being so goddamn judgmental of each other. You know, and I think that comes from, you know, stopping people from being the true selves when they get into work and being comfortable with that, because it's like, well, am I going to be judged?
Yeah. Yeah. We do live in a much more judgmental world these days. Tell you what's popping in my head though, just we're talking about that, the Barbie movie.
Oh yeah, I haven't actually seen it.
Oh, right. You need to see it. You need to see it. It's brilliant. I mean, I don't watch many movies, but I did go and see Barbie. I'm not going to explain this very well, but there's a part in it, and it has been cut and used as like reels and stuff online. How, you know, almost like winning can't win.
Mm.
You know, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And it goes through a number of different scenarios and the opposites of them. You know, don't be fat, but don't be too thin either. You know, it's all of those. And like, what do you want? Well, I tell you what, I don't even care what you want.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do what I want.
Just going to do me.
And I know that's easier said than done.
It is.
Easier said than done.
Yeah. It is, especially as a leader in the workplace when you know, you're trying to impress, so to speak, for want of a better word, because you know, you're climbing that career
You want to
ladder.
get wrong, right?
Yeah. So it's, you know, there is an element of, well, you know, what does professionalism look like? What does a leader look like as a woman leader? Which, you know, there's a lot of the topics in this podcast. But yeah, I think, like I said, we are then in situations where it's like, I'll have to watch that Barbie movie, but you know, where there are certain things, there are certain roles that are expected of us. You know, I've met people whilst I've been training, particularly when I do my ED&I work, that when they were at school, the careers guidance came in. They talked about what they could do when they leave school, and it was, these are pink jobs and these are blue jobs.
Yeah. So girls, you could be a nurse or a secretary.
Yeah.
Boys, you could be a brain surgeon or an architect.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've said that to people and played it back to them and said, you know, they'd give you a list with these blue jobs and pink jobs. People go, oh my God, I'm doing that now to my kids because we do that with the chores at home. Oh, what do you mean? And they're like, well, I've got a son and a daughter, and we talk about blue jobs and pink jobs. I'm like, well, what are blue jobs? I'm like, well, mowing the lawn, putting the bins out. And I'm like, well, so what are the pink jobs? Doing the dishes, hoovering, washing the clothes. And it's like the realization that they've been brought up in that generation. They're like, I'm now passing that on to my generation to show that there are jobs that men and women should do in the household. So, you know, is it any wonder why we've got these unconscious biases when we've been brought up being taught this kind of thing? And I love I was only talking to somebody about this yesterday, actually, the riddle that I'm sure you've heard of, which is, you know, there's a father and son in a car accident. Father dies at the scene of the accident. Son gets taken to hospital, it's badly injured. And when he gets to the hospital, the surgeon takes one look at him and says, I can't operate on this boy because he's my son. And then you go, how come? So giving you a few seconds to think about that, see if you know the answer. Because a lot of people will be like, oh, I don't really know. And then,
Because his dad died at the scene.
yeah, so some of the answers will be things like, well, is it his granddad and he just calls him son? Or, oh, I know, it's two gay dads, he's got two dads. You know, or is he stepson? So he still calls him. They'll come up with every other answer other than what the actual answer is. Have you got it? Let us know in the comments. The surgeon is his mum. And when you tell people, they're like, oh yeah, that's really obvious how you say that. And it's just a really good riddle to show people that that's potentially one of your unconscious biases, that you just presume that a surgeon is a man.
Absolutely.
And I spoke to some people that work in the NHS, and they says it happens all the time with families when they're visiting a patient, like one of their family members, and you've got maybe a porter that's in there and the surgeon, and the porter or nurse is a man and the surgeon's a woman, and they turn to the porter or nurse and talk to them thinking that that's the surgeon. And that mistake happens all the time. Yeah.
So all of that conditioning, I think, is what leads to how we show up differently.
Yeah.
In work,
Yeah.
in a corporate setting, and in a leadership role.
Yeah.
But it's problematic, you know. And I guess the broad kind of, I don't know what the word is. What's the word I'm looking for? But if you strip it right back, the first thing to recognise is that we live in a male-coded world. I'd never cottoned on to that. Because it's the only world I'd ever known.
Yeah.
You know, and what I mean by male-coded world is we live in a world built by men for men. And then when you look at the fact then that, you know, traditionally leadership roles were always taken up by men.
Yeah.
That then when women did start to kind of step into that space, you know, it was kind of like, well, there's nothing feminine about this. So then if you wanted to get on, you either sat pretty, you know, look, kept your mouth shut, you know, played along nicely,
Played the game.
yeah, did what you needed to do, what was expected of you, or you copied the men.
Yeah.
Because clearly what they do is what gets you along.
Yeah.
And that's where I think you end up with an alpha female bitch from hell, is what I call them.
Yeah.
You know, which everybody knows one, but you'll never get anyone who admits to being one.
It's true.
You know, but I always find it's a really sad place to be. You know, I don't criticize women who've stepped into like that alpha type leadership role, because at least she was brave enough to step in there.
Yeah.
But she had no other role model, no other way to show her what good looks like. So you try and emulate their masculine behaviour that you see.
Yeah.
But I compare it to like, it's as if, imagine going to work wearing a man's suit.
Yeah.
It would be ill-fitting. You know, the shoulders would be too broad. The sleeves would be too long. It wouldn't be nipped in at the waist. You know, it'd be quite...
You make me think about Tom Hanks in Big.
Yeah. Think of that. That's what male, traditional masculine behaviour looks like on a woman when she does try and at least not be the good girl at work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think a lot of women recognise this good girl behaviour is not getting me anywhere.
Yeah.
So I need to step it up a bit. But the only way I know to do anything with that is to be like the men. And it doesn't work.
And what I'm just thinking there when we're talking as well is, because I know we talk a lot about feminine energy, and what I don't want to do is confuse people by going, okay, well, what what does, and I think that's what we're talking about, that balance in the middle, aren't we? Because it's not about being passive, feminine energy.
No.
We talk about this good girl energy. That's not feminine energy.
No.
Although in some cases it almost has become that.
Well, you know, a feminine energy trait would be around, you know, trying to achieve harmony.
Yeah.
Right, which is great. But the way in which we try and achieve harmony sometimes is not.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not the best way. Yeah.
It's almost like when you look at Thomas Kilman's conflict styles, for example, you've got the competing style,
Yeah.
which is probably more what we're talking about in terms of your masculine energy, or being that, what do you call them? Alpha, female bitch from hell. That's your competing, my way on the highway, very dictatorial, I always struggle with that word, dictatorial. And then you've got your avoiding and accommodating, which is very passive, which is probably what we're saying here with that good girl energy, is very much just best to avoid it, or I'll just accommodate and you get your way. So it's win for you, lose for me.
Absolutely.
And actually what we're looking at is more that collaborative style.
And the assertive style.
The assertive, because your collaboration on the graph is high in assertiveness, high in cooperation.
Yeah, absolutely. But and you know, I think one myth that absolutely needs busting in this whole good girl energy. Yes, I think first and foremost, the definition of good girl energy is wonky. Yeah, it needs to be different. We need to shift that. But equally, the way we describe a lot of men's behaviour as assertive, that's not assertive.
Yeah.
That's aggressive.
Yeah.
When it's forceful and it's competing, when it's not collaborative, if it is pure competing, direct, full on, that isn't assertiveness either.
No.
You know, but real good girl and good boy energy would be true assertiveness, which is that it's win-win.
Yeah.
What habits think win-win? Is Stephen Covey's.
I think it's at 4/4,
Habit 4, win-win.
I think it's something, number 3. Yeah.
I think it's 4.
But yeah, win-win is, you know, it's such an important, you know, when I talk about the conflict styles and win-win being collaborative, as a leader, if overall, because all the conflict styles have a place, they've all got pros and cons. Overall, I would say your team are going to take more kindly to a collaborative approach. But in the times, because collaboration is time consuming, in the times where a decision's got to be made on the spot and it's got to be quick and you have got to jump into competing, your team will respect that a lot more because most of the time they're involved, they're asked. Whereas if you are competing all the time, your team are going to be hostile towards you. And like you said, it almost goes beyond being assertive. It goes into the aggressiveness.
I think the thing is when you try and pigeonhole yourself, almost like it's a character trait of you, rather than, you know, the idea is that you have adaptability and flexibility to do all of those styles and you use them when they're appropriate, not be like, oh, well, I call a spade, me. That's just the way I am.
Yeah.
Unbelievably low accountability and not cool.
Lack of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, and self-awareness without action is a waste of fucking time. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely. And what happens as a leader if you have got this good girl energy, or good boy? Because again, I've had some managers that are very high in avoiding, you know, whether something needs to be escalated or some confrontation that needs to be had. I think what tends to happen with your team is they end up walking all over you. You end up with a lack of credibility, because if you're accommodating and you're avoiding, you just let them get on with and do it their way, or they know that you're not going to address anything, then you do end up with a team that, as some delegates have called it before, doormat.
People pleasing, don't
Absolutely, yeah.
or you go into mum mode.
Mhm.
I meet so many women leaders who are like, oh, you know, I am the mum of the team. It's almost like, well, they're proud of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, not cool.
No, no,
That's not what you're here for, is to be the team mum.
no. And I often talk about this word that if, as a leader, your team describe you or people describe you in the business as a nice person, that's not to be seen as a positive. What does nice even mean?
Nice isn't a cool word.
No. Inspiring, motivating, positive, those kind of words you want to be described as a leader, but nice is neither here nor there, is it? And I've had a manager in the past that was a man, but was more of the high avoiding. And rightly or wrongly, if I knew that I needed something to be escalated, I would go to his manager. So I'd go over his head because I knew that his manager would do something, the thing that I needed to get. Let's say I needed something escalating with senior people because they weren't getting back to me on emails or whatever. If I escalated it to him, I knew he'd try and avoid having that conversation as much as possible. So I'd end up going above its head, and you don't want that as a leader either. So, but you hit on something there around which is definitely classic good girl energy, is saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
I'm really struggling to say no, which I know you see it a lot, and I definitely see it a lot. People that are just struggling. I suppose it links back to we were talking a couple of episodes ago about burnout, that you end up saying yes to all things because you want people please, and then you end up stressed as anything, thinking, I said yes to everybody, how am I gonna not fit this in, don't you?
Yeah. And then you end up really bitter and twisted and full of resentment. And then everyone thinks, oh, she's a bit of a bulldog chewing a wasp, isn't she? Because it eats away in you over time because it pisses you off.
Yeah.
Even though you're doing it to yourself.
Yeah.
It's a bit hard to have that look in the mirror moment and go, well, I've caused this.
Mhm.
You feel done to, you feel like a victim. And then when you behave like a victim, well, that doesn't have much influence. So it's almost becomes like a vicious circle of leadership that you can't seem to break out of sometimes.
Yeah.
So
I think once you started saying yes, it's hard to get out of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's
that. And then also apologising for yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes I ban the word sorry. I'm going to put a jar on the table, and every time you say sorry, you've got to put a pound in it.
Yeah.
Because you're not.
And then when I say things similar to that, people will then say sorry. So they're saying sorry for saying sorry.
Sorry, right, there's a fiver in already.
And they're like, oh, sorry.
Yeah. Because they're so used to apologising for themselves and, their opinion or for taking up space.
I was just going to say,
I'm sorry to bother you. Please don't be sorry for bothering me. You're not bothering me.
Yeah.
Or actually know that that's my responsibility then. If I'm not ready to be bothered, that's for me to set my boundary and protect my time, not for you to apologise for coming over it. Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it?
It's like people, you just reminded me there of this. I kind of see it similar when people are quite overly apologetic. Are the type of people who say, oh, it's just me, or it's only me. And I always call people up on that word just, because it's, you're downplaying yourself if you're like, oh, it's just me, or I'm just a this, whatever your job title might be, and nobody's just anything, are they? It's everyone's important.
The other thing that kind of makes me think about is one thing that women do a lot of, and I'm going to stand by that. I know it's a bit stereotypical, but we'll stand by it. Is that, women will often say, when you're asked to describe what you do, rather than just say, well, I'm the leader, oh, well, I help, blah, 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 or me and my team help. Whereas, actually, you deliver something you're responsible for, you own X, Y, Z. Yeah, and men describe that very differently to how a lot of women do. It's almost like, oh, I kind of help or support this.
Yeah.
Rather than take the credit for the thing that you do.
Yeah, and I suppose it's that having some of that good girl energy is, and again, you're making me think about how we My mind's gone blank again. I'm getting that brain fog today. Not apologise, but just downplay. And that's it. In terms of selling ourselves.
Right.
So we almost feel awkward to sell ourselves on something that we're good at. Like, I don't know, like it just feel like people feel icky about it and go, no, I don't like selling myself. And, you know, I suppose that comes back to sometimes when people are applying for a promotion and they're going for an interview and it's like, oh, I don't want to big myself up too much, because I think sometimes people have this word, or I don't want to come across as arrogant. And, you know, I used to have a manager that always used to say, well, there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. And so I think that's another thing that we're probably afraid of people seeing us as, is arrogant. So we go, oh, well, I'm not going to come across as too overly confident, because is that going to look at, you know, like arrogant? So whereas men, on the other hand, overall, probably don't think about it in that way, do they?
No, and I think what's different, even just at a makeup level, of women in it a bit. And this isn't me saying that I know this, it's what I think. So I might be wrong. But for me, ego plays a big part. So when I say ego to a lot of people, they see it as quite negative, and I don't mean it in a negative way at all. But we have, our egos are very driven by different things, male and female, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, our ego is driven from a nurturing perspective. I actually think it's quite innate, you know, to be collaborative and achieve things together. And whereas, you know, men's ego is like, it's a hunter-gatherer kind of, you know, hard wiring that means I have to be bold and be able to say what I'm good at and what I'm, you know, what I can achieve and stuff like that. So it feels quite primal. I mean, people might disagree with me. It's just it is only my thinking around it. But it's about, for me, it's about ego. And ego gets used as a negative phrase in leadership. Like, you know, you should leave your ego at the door, or his head too big for his boots or whatever. And no, it's not saying his. But, you know, is it overinflated, his ego? Yeah, I think it was when you were talking about confidence and arrogance. If you've got some humility, then I don't think you can come across as arrogant.
Yeah.
It's when you lack humility. That's your confidence overplayed. It's arrogance. That's all it takes. So whether you're a man or a woman, if you don't want to come across as arrogant, it's just about checking in with your own humility around that.
It's a good point. I'm just thinking about someone we used to work with that say we, don't mean
I was going to say
where people used to say about him being arrogant, saying if he was chocolate, he'd eat himself, like that's how much he loves himself, kind of thing. But I think with the ego side as well, it's when you're just saying about it being primal, it's almost like if you think about men in the home and then versus men as a leader, you know, it's kind of like thinking, well, men wouldn't like the thought of, they're very protective of the family. So they wouldn't like the thought of, well, my family can get by without me. And I suppose that's what I tend to see sometimes in the workplace with ego, is they don't want to take a day off and my team perform really well. Or, you know, I want to be needed and I want to be, feel like I've got some significance within the team. Whereas I know definitely when I was a leader, I would always aspire to, I would want my team to do better when I'm not there, because that means that's great. I've coached them well enough to be self-sufficient, and you know they can get on without.
Well, that's like nurturing streak, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think we all need to be needed, but for different things.
Yes,
we both mums and dads are protective of their families, but in very different ways.
Yeah,
you know, like you say, the men are more protective from a security.
That's it. Yeah.
Perspective and stability, whereas a mama bear, you know, would batter any creature that tried to hurt her
little cubs. We're doing bears in this episode. It's like become a bit of a running joke now. Whether lions or bears, you can place your bets at the beginning of the episode whether we're doing lions or bears. We've got with bears today.
Do a little tally chart. How many times we mention it?
So you wouldn't argue with a mama bear.
No.
She'd eat you for
No, I
breakfast.
think now is like when you said about security, that's where I was coming from, because you said about that word primal, it made me think about that. It's like whenever I stay in a hotel with my husband, he always sleeps on the side of the bed that's closest to the door, because it's his job to protect
No,
me.
Dave doesn't put himself at
Oh, do you?
so they'll eat you first, not me, or stop you first. Whatever. Dark Lord,
I mean, those things have never happened.
Yeah.
You did know. It's funny, isn't it, how people just do those types of things.
But interestingly, though, when I stay in a hotel on my own, I still sleep on the side of the bed that's first.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it, how we do these things.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we've looked at the conditioning, how it kind of shows up, manifests itself day to day. What are the things that we can do about it? What should we be doing about it?
Yeah, I think
Obviously, I wrote quite a lot about this in my book. If you watch it on video, I'm going to pick it up. If you listen on audio, you won't know. But my book, #1 best-selling book, I'm just going to do a shameless plug, Woman Up.
Yeah,
I wrote this in 2021.
so that long ago.
It's 5 years old this year.
It's time for another one.
No. People always say, will you write another book? And I'm like, no, it was a one-time deal. Just wanted to do it once. But you mentioned about being able to say no, not being the yes person, the doormat, the people pleaser. And a big part of that book was fundamentally about the skill of assertiveness. That's the thread all the way through it. One of the things I developed to go in there was the guilt-free formula for saying no. And I think I'm going to be quite bold about saying, I think it's changed loads of women's lives because it's instant. It's a technique. You can just do it. I'm not going to spoil it. I think you should buy yourself a copy of the book if you want to know what it is. But, I think there is #1 when it comes to saying yes and saying sorry. It is about, #1, shifting your mindset about who you are and the space that you're allowed to take up, and then therefore be able to have a word with yourself so that you're not apologising for what you do and you are able to say no to things.
Yeah.
That's a big one for me, I think.
Yeah, it is. And it is a good formula. But yeah, I think I was going to say, to start with, I think it's good to just have a bit of self-reflection, to think about if what we're talking about here, and I mentioned the word balance, I think, quite a few times. If you look at it on a continuum of aggressive on this side, if you're watching on YouTube, but just at one side of a spectrum, you've got aggressiveness, and on the other side, you've got passive, or passiveness, if that's a word. And that assertiveness being somewhere in the middle, or that balance that we talk about. So your good girl energy that we're saying is more the passive side.
It's been seen.
Yeah. And then your,
full on,
alpha female bitch, kind of being on the aggressive side. It's just having a bit of self-reflection to think, where would I plot myself on that continuum, on that spectrum? And if you're not too sure, but, maybe having a bit of thought about that yourself, but asking people that you trust, for a bit of feedback, in terms of what they see when you walk into a meeting room, for example. If for people that maybe you have led for a long time and you've got a great relationship with, asking people for feedback, and then just thinking about, okay, where do I need to move that on the spectrum a little bit? I think a big part of it is if you're more on that passive side, the being able to say no. If you're more on the alpha female side, how do I tap into my feminine energy a little bit more and understand that I don't need that masculine energy to get by?
And knowing that it is a skill.
Yeah.
So because it's a skill, you can learn it. Anyone can learn it. I've heard people say to me, I'm just not built that way. I'm not designed. Or I'm too nice. Well, you will be if you keep telling yourself that. It's a skill that means anybody can learn it. You know, the other watch out, and I think this is probably a good bit just to kind of land on before we finish this episode, is the watch out. We've talked about aggressiveness. We've talked about being passive. We've talked about assertive. The big watch out is passive aggressive.
Yeah.
And actually it's a danger trap for lots of women. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, I know.
Right? It's because we get bitter and twisted because we've been treated like a doormat, and then we go passive aggressive. And a lot of people don't identify passive aggressive behaviour in themselves. So if you are puffing, saying you're fine when you're not, eye rolling, being sarcastic,
I was going to say
being flippant, you know, they're all passive aggressive traits.
Yeah.
And I see people, lots of women though, do that when they're struggling to be assertive instead.
Yeah.
Or we go and bitch to someone else and we're two-faced. That's all passive aggressive behaviour. Now listen, don't get me wrong, I love being passive aggressive sometimes.
When you choose to be.
But yeah, that's the thing, is that I've got to know when I'm doing it and recognise that it's not serving me. I'm just indulging myself for 5 minutes. It's not going to get me anywhere.
Yeah.
In fact, it's probably going to set me back a little bit. But if I really need to, knock yourself out, do it in a safe space, and then go and put your big girl pants on and have a little shift into assertiveness, because there's nothing more, I want to use the word unattractive, but I don't mean that in an appealing to the opposite sex kind.
Yeah.
I mean attractive as a leader than passive aggressive behaviour.
Yeah, it's a very good point, that passive aggressiveness. I think also, but one last thing from me when you just saying there is that to make an impact, you don't have to be big, bold, loud, brashy to make an impact. In fact, listening, you know, the skill of being able to listen and make an input at the right time can have a bigger impact than feeling like you've got to be the one that's talking all the time. So yeah, I think some people think impact means I've got to be the loudest person in the room, but that doesn't always have to be the case.
Certainly not. And being assertive can be quite reserved and quiet and yeah.
Calm.
On that note,
Yes.
I think that's a nice point to kind of just leave it to simmer. I'm sure it will crop up again in future episodes under a different topic, but it is very, very relevant.
Yeah.
But yeah, shameless plug from me. If you're interested in that kind of topic and you would like to be more assertive, then do head on to Amazon and get a copy of my book, Woman Up. I'll try and make sure there's a link to it in the show notes.
Put a link in the bottom. Yeah. Excellent. So thank you once again for listening or watching our podcast, Lipstick, Laughs and Leadership. If you are listening on your podcast platform, follow us if you're not already, leave a comment, a review. We would absolutely love that, and we'll get back to any comments. And if you are watching us on YouTube, like and subscribe. And if we've managed to hit the hype link yet on YouTube, give us a hype as well.
What do we have to get to?
I'm not sure actually. I think it's a new thing, but yeah, give us a hype. And there is a link as well, because we do like a good cup of coffee while we're recording these podcasts. So there is a buy me a coffee link if you are enjoying our podcast and you want to keep us fueled for future podcasts.
And we'll treat them in our Lipstick, Laughs and Leadership branded mugs.
Absolutely. So there is a link below, and we really appreciate.
Buy us a coffee. Yeah, treat us to a coffee.
Love that.
All right, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Lipstick, Laughs and Leadership.
If something in today's conversation resonated, take a moment to sit with it, or share this episode with someone who might need to hear it too.
You can subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and that really helps more women find these conversations.
We're glad you spent this time with us, and we hope you're leaving feeling a little more grounded, a little more confident, and a little less alone.
So we'll meet you back on the sofa next time.